Hello and welcome to Steven University. This week we are discussing It Could Have Been Great, an episode that ironically could have been great. No, I'm kidding. That would have been almost too easy. The episode is good. It's solid. But Chris, what was it about, and did you like it?
Okay. So it starts with them being like, Peridot being like, hey, why have we stopped working? And Steven's like, because we're taking a break, bitch. Sorry.
Did he say that?
Obviously. He didn't say that.
Oh, man. For a second. For a minute, I thought you got some like weird like X-rated version of the show, like where like everyone's swearing all the time.
Yeah. And I was expecting him to actually say, because it's my birthday, but we've dropped that, which is fine. No longer relevant. So he's like, we're just appreciating the earth. She's like, all right, fine, weird. And then
which I'm on her side there.
Well, they've never done it before, Dan. I think the birthday thing seems to make so much more sense. But anyway,
I think you'll find that if you watch the intro of the show every week, it ends with them just sat on the beach looking out.
If you want to get pedantic,
just saying, every week you see them sat on the beach just looking out at the ocean.
It's not within the context of the episodes themselves, though, is it, Dan?
Well, you could argue that the intro is made up of footage of things that really happened.
Depends.
Maybe they did have a barbecue, and maybe Greg Universe did barrel through the town with all the tertiary characters looking
like
on,
Fred
and
Flintstone.
then arriving at the beach to slam down his barbecue just in time to the music.
That's dangerous, driving with a heated barbecue.
Not sure it was heated when he was driving with it, but yeah.
He's not
doing burgers in the back of his van, is he? Well, I suppose actually he must be cooking somewhere. Actually, he lives in the fucking van, so that's a really good point.
Exactly. See, I think it all depends on how pedantic you're going to be, and I think you've made it clear. Very.
Yeah.
So,
carry on.
So Peridot gets excited because they finished the machine, and she says, "We did it." And Steven's like, "Look how far we've come." Like, she's no longer wanting to kill us. And then they start a song. And at that point, I was like, oh, God, is the whole episode going to be a song about how far Peridot's come? That's going to be good if you like songs, but dull otherwise. But the whole episode's not that. They then decide, she then gets panicky because they need to find the coordinates. The coordinates are on the moon. So that's a problem. Shit, how are they going to get to the moon? Des X Lion is suddenly able to take him to the moon, so that's cool. They do some funky stuff with Lion. He takes him to the moon. Then we look at some paintings for a bit. We get a look at some of the diamonds. And then we see what the plans were for Earth, which is to build a big monorail and build all these gems, just a lot of gem stuff, basically. And they get all upset, quite rightly. This is our planet, Peridot. And they kind of try and express that to her, and she goes, if she's come a long way, she done half take 2 footsteps forward and 5 footsteps away from the moon this episode. She goes right down in their estimations, and then they walk to the warp pad, and she's got like some gem shit hidden with her. And Steven says, guys, she's hiding a gem, we should address this. He doesn't do that at all. He lets it slide. Because he's probably going to deal with it himself. That's the episode.
Yeah. I don't think it's fair to call out. There's 2 things I don't think are necessarily fair to call out there. But it could just be that you're doing what I sometimes do on Fringe Observers, which is making things I don't really have a problem with just for a bit of a laugh, and to make the intro slightly slightly less dry. So it could be that you don't really feel that strongly about either. But the Lion Deus Ex Machina thing, he can teleport people. It's just we didn't know he could go that far. So I think calling that a Deus Ex Machina is a bit heavy. And and Stephen calling out Peridot, I think you're absolutely right to say that he's very intentionally not calling that out because he wants to deal with that himself, because I think quite rightly he'd be concerned at this stage that the gems might overreact if Peridot's doing something on the sly, whereas I think he trusts her enough at this point, and I think he thinks he can deal with whatever it is himself without getting her into any more hot water with the gems. That was my thinking.
I don't think he can deal with it, Dan. I think it's going to lead to some drama.
I suspect very likely as we head towards the final two episodes of The Bomb. Yeah. I would argue that is quite accurate. But on the whole, what are we thinking to the episode?
I was embellishing slightly the dryness in which I did the intro. So those two things weren't particularly a problem. But it's probably it was good. It was good. And there were some great stuff. And I think you get a lot. Like you get like Yellow Diamond and the moon and like that full horror of what they were going to do to the Earth and the Gem's reactions to it. And although I took the mick out of it, them just watching and enjoying the Earth, all of those things are beautifully done. It's probably my least favorite of this bomb so far. I really liked that all the other two episodes were really concise, clear stories, and this one, just for me personally, I think this one was a collection of cool things as opposed to being a cohesive whole that flowed. Like I say, it starts with the song and then it's this and then it's this. And I don't know. Like there were so many cool things, and I'm worried that people are going to shout at me on YouTube comments that I can't read because there are so many cool things that I can almost see. There's probably a lot of iconic things in this, and people might be drawn to them. But I just don't feel like just because there's those iconic things there that the whole episode never necessarily works as a whole. I'll leave this episode like, oh yeah, that was cool and that was cool, but I don't leave it like, oh, that was a great story, like episode 2 of The Bomb, or episode 1 of The Bomb. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree. I think this episode doesn't really feel like a cohesive single. The show has always been very good at like doing giving each episode a very conclusive feeling story arc of its own, even if it does fit into a larger puzzle. Whereas this one very much feels like it's the first part of a 3-part story or a 2-part story, and it'll probably all work out really well when you've seen the whole bomb. But what we're doing here is judging each episode as they sit, as they are, and as an individual episode. Like if you're a kid watching this, because these sort of shows get broken up and rerun in ways that aren't linked together directly, and any other episode of this show that we've seen so far, with maybe the exception of Jailbreak, because that literally comes straight after the return and feels like it needs to have the return in front of it. But all the other episodes kind of work as their own. Even Ocean Gem, Mirror Gem. Like, the problem in Ocean Gem is that the ocean is gone. You know what I mean? The problem in Mirror Gem is that he's found this weird talking mirror. And they have a link, but they still each individually have their own story that you can follow A to B. If you're watching this episode in a rerun, you really do feel like you're just getting a piece of a larger story, and there's not enough to tie this episode. I mean, there is a mission. The mission is they need to go to the moon and retrieve this drill, sort of the coordinates for the drill. But that's kind of 2 sentences, and then they're on the moon, and it's not really enough of a focus of the episode to actually be the draw. So it doesn't really feel like the plot of the episode. It feels like the B plot while we deal with this other sort of where's Peridot up to, basically. What's Peridot's place now? Is she truly on their side? Is she still just looking out for herself? Is she still not secretly, but is she still, even potentially secretly still still really on the side of the Diamond Authority, which we get introduced to that concept in this episode as well. So I think you're right. I think your criticism is absolutely valid, because it still needs to function as a single episode, and I feel like there is an incomplete feeling to this story, which, as a viewer, the way we're watching it, will not be a problem in the long run, because I'm sure that once we watch the next 2 episodes, that criticism will feel, very, very sort of thin and not really that relevant. But I think in the context of watching a single episode, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. It's not a complete story, really. It's the start of one, and a very interesting story, and a very well put together sort of first act, as it were. But you definitely feel that it's going into it. And now what's interesting about that is on the previous bombs we've complained about them not being linked enough. So, because it's a bomb, do they get permission to do that? It's interesting. I don't know the answer. I do think that if you're judging this as a single piece of 11-minute television without the wider picture, that is a fair criticism. But I suppose where do you draw that line? Because it is a bomb, and the next episode aired the next day. Presumably, people watched it that way, or at least a lot of people did. So I don't know. Don't know.
But I think
thought.
on that as well, I was so enjoying the Stevens birthday arc. So to see that just disappear was a bit of a shame. I was a bit like, oh, that's a shame. Like I think that's a pity.
Yeah, especially because it wouldn't have. You're right. It wouldn't have taken much just to link this, because all it would have taken was for them to say at the beginning, "Ah, we're chilling out. It's, it's my birthday. We're just sort of like taking it easy for a little bit. Enjoying ourselves."
Yeah, it's Stephen's birthday weekend. Something like that. So, what did you think of the moments? Do you think it was cool to see Yellow Diamond, or is there an element of it's you wouldn't have necessarily picked her reveal to be in a photo, but I thought it was still pretty cool. It's still pretty like, oh shit, and surprising as well, which was cool. I wasn't expecting them to just be like, oh, this is Yellow Diamond, especially when Blue Diamond had been sort of concealed a bit. So I thought that element of just like, here you go, was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think what's cool about it is the Yellow Diamond image is obviously, it's not a photo as such. It's like a sort of like, like a mosaic of her. It's not even necessarily, it's like an artist interpretation. So she might not even quite look like that, which is what I kind of liked about it, which is it gives you such a sense of the grandeur of this character and the importance of this character, that they're finding artwork of her from, thousands of years prior. She's clearly, and then Peridot's reaction to just seeing the image of her, because that's what I love most, is actually the way that what it tells us about Peridot, because she sees Blue Diamond and she's like, oh cool, Blue Diamond, wait, if she's here, does that mean, and then she's like looking around for Yellow Diamond. Obviously, she still has this reverence for her old, sort of boss, and that's fascinating to sort of see. So it's a cool moment for a couple of reasons, because it is, yes, this really interesting view of these two characters who are part of this Diamond Authority. So and I don't know if you noticed, Chris, but the symbol for the Diamond Authority seems to be four sort of diamond shapes stuck together in a diamond shape, one of which is yellow, one of which is blue. So I think you can make assumptions about you could argue, and I think a lot of people did at the time, that might suggest that there are 4 members to the Diamond Authority.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah. So I think it's this episode's cool because it just fills in a couple of gaps in nothing groundbreaking, nothing that we couldn't have potentially assumed, but it's still nice to get confirmed. And it pretty much
like the
go on.
Well, very similar approach to the reveal of what it would have done to Earth, and I just loved. I think the most effective, the most powerful, and the best bits of that element were the gems reactions, and Stephen looking like he was going to throw up, and Garnet's anger and smashing the thing at the end. I thought that was cool. In a way, that was cooler than the logistical. These are the designs, all these sort of monuments and buildings were going to be sticking out of the earth. Like, actually, the reactions was my favourite bit of that.
Yeah, I think it's the same. I think with the diamond reveal, it's like the coolest part of the diamond reveal is Peridot's reaction, and you're right. One of the coolest parts of them going through the original plan for Earth, the most fascinating part to me as a viewer is the character perspective, and getting to see how much it disgusts the gems, and it just re-solidifies their political position in this scenario. And what's cool as well is when she was when Peridot's flipping through the diagrams of some of the completed structures, many of them are things we've seen: the Lunar Sea Spire, the Sea Shrine, the Sky Spire, Communication Hub. We've been to a lot of these places over the course of the show. So I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Even potentially one of them that looked a little bit like potentially the moon base itself, which I thought was neat, with the one they were in. And the Galaxy Warp showed up in that as well. So it's some cool little continuity there as well. What I've also found interesting in this is this idea that the end game wasn't originally the cluster. The end game originally was to make it a sustainable planet for resources for the gems, with multiple sort of kindergartens constantly just pumping out gems, and then parts of the Earth sort of reforming under it, like the way you could see mass just being shifted around in these like arcs around the planet itself. So it was going to be like a functional, stable, continuous source of gem resources and gems. So it was legitimately going to be a colony rather than than something they were going to completely destroy. But of course, the plan shifted as the fight for that planet raged on, and eventually led to this plan for the cluster, which is sort of like their last resort, sort of to make use of the planet, which is it's a really
pretty
cool
horrific.
idea.
It's pretty like they do a good job of like there was almost beginning to form this balance, I think, of like showing the gems fighting. You know, there's this sort of implication of Rose being like a general and a leader and stuff, and then you see that plan and you're just like, well, screw them. Like gems are the bad guys, like, well and truly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's it's not even necessarily that they're the bad guys. They just don't see the value in Earth. It's literally that simple. They just don't get it. Like they don't get humanity is like ants to them. Do you know what I mean? Would you wouldn't blink twice if you had an empty lot next to your house where there was just nothing built there, but there was an anthill, and someone came in and dug up the anthill to build a house there. You wouldn't think twice about that, would you?
Well, now you're making me feel guilty about the way I may or may not have treated ants in my life.
I just mean that to the gems, we are ants on a rock. The rock's useful to them. They don't care about us, and that's. And it's from our perspective, that's horrific. Of course it is. But what I'm saying is it's not even that they're evil. They're not just doing it because they're mustache twiddling. That's what I love about this, is they're doing it because they just don't see the value in what's on this rock. It's a useful thing to them, and they you know, we're going to clean out the pests first, and then we're off. You know what I mean? That's basically
sounds to me like you're well and truly on the gems side, Dan.
Yeah, me and Peridot, we're all planning to betray the lot here. But no, I just mean that what's great about this show is like they do such a good job making sure that you don't. The villains aren't really villains. They're not being evil. They just don't understand. Like it's that simple. They have no concept of the value of the planet, and that's what's great about this episode because it really plays on Peridot's lack of understanding. Because even though she's been on Earth and she's starting to get it, and Steven's teaching her music, and I suppose that is sort of the arc of the episode. Is you get this situation where you got Peridot who's being shown that look, you can just sit and admire the sunset or the ocean, or you can make music, and that's fun too. And look at all these, the lifestyle here is different. You're not born with a purpose. You're free in a way that gems aren't. This society is arguably better. And then she goes up to the this base on the moon. She looks at the original plans, and that old habit kicks in, and she's like, "Oh, it could have been great. Look how brilliant this is," because she's still just seeing it from an architectural sort of cold gem perspective as well. She's not expunged that, so you see the conflicting ideas both in this episode. So I suppose the point of the episode is showing us how still on the fence Peridot is, and as much progress as she's made, she's still going to observe the potential achievement that could have been Earth from the gems perspective, and go, that's amazing. Look how cool this would have been. Even though she's seen the beauty of the Earth, and I think that's and this.
Do you think?
Go on, sorry.
No, you go.
No, I lost my train of thought anyway. It's fine.
Do you think before I interrupted or as I interrupted?
No, I think in general, I think I was tailing off. So carry on. You've saved me from embarrassing myself without actually having a point or rambling too much.
Do you think they've earned Peridot coming round to them though, or do you think we again just needed like another like? I think they made huge strides in that last time with the her Amethyst storyline, not last time before last or whenever it was. I think that's fascinating, and I'm still shipping Peridot and Amethyst. By the way, there was that moment where she was like, "They're not as awesome as you would have been as your kindergarten," and Amethyst is just like, "Thanks." Like,
yeah,
like that's a weird compliment.
I love that.
I thought that was really funny and sweet, and Pamethist. I don't know, is that the ship name? You can't tell me. You're not going to tell me if there's a ship. So, but Pamethist makes a lot of sense. Would it be Pamethist? Yeah. Anyway, and oh god, if that's right, just the comment. He knows about Pamethist. He's been googling. I haven't. Just makes sense because Amadot doesn't. In my opinion,
oh man, Amadot all the way. I'm Team Amadot. It's better.
So, I have no idea what I was saying. Yeah, so they had that episode. And there's been the odd moment, and she's quite cool with Steven, but I think maybe one more. We've had When It Rains, I suppose. I suppose when you start listing them, we have had a lot, but I don't know, just one more. Just a little bit of,
to be honest with you,
other side of Paradox.
For me, the point of this is that she isn't completely won over yet. That's the point. You know what I mean? That's why there's this fallout at the end of this episode. That's why the gems react the way they do, because she's still not figured it out. She's not quite there yet. She's made progress, as Stephen points out in the early parts of the episode, but we very much, I suppose the story of this episode is that as much progress as she's made, that's still that instinct to not care about the Earth and its fate is still in her, and it's not gone anywhere. Yeah, she might have learned to make friends with Amethyst last week, or she might have learned about rain, or she might have learned how to make music, but she's not been on Earth long enough yet to have changed properly, not true change. So I think that's kind of the point. If she'd learnt enough to have completely changed, and she was going, wouldn't this have been amazing if we'd have blown up the Earth? You'd be like, well, wait a minute, 10 minutes ago I was convinced you were finally getting it. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's kind of intentional that she's not yet there. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense or not.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
But I do think that her character arc going slowly is like, wherever her arc is going to end up, whether it's going to end up with it turning out to have all been one big con and she's actually, just sort of been using them, or if it turns out that she's just self-preservation and she still doesn't give a crap about the Earth and she's just pretending, or if she is genuinely starting to come round. Either way, I think there's a really interesting arc in it for her, and I think if you overplay your hand and do it too fast, you risk ruining it. Yeah. With 11-minute episodes, you risk whether the end game is a changed Peridot, a still cold Peridot, but she's out for self-preservation, or a conniving Peridot that's playing a game this whole time. Either one of those, they're all interesting. But if you rush that, it's going to be crap. And what I will say to the writers here is, whatever they're doing with her, and I can't reveal what, even though I know, they're clearly playing the long game with it, and that is absolutely the right move. Little nudges in the right direction, and
it makes me feel it's such a weird one, this, because I've not changed my opinion over the course of this conversation or come around to the episode, but I can see how it links in and plays a part in a puzzle so very nicely into other themes and other ideas. Uh-huh. So it's like I've not changed my opinion, but I'm more accepting of that, and of that being a price for it to do all these other things we've talked about.
Yeah. Can I add something to the conversation, Chris?
You what? Sorry?
Can I add something interesting to the conversation that I've been waiting to tell you for
ideally
about 30 episodes, I think.
Right.
So in the episode Keep Beach City Weird, which is one of Ronaldo's episodes,
Ugh.
Yeah. There's a bit towards the end of the episode. It's the one where he's under the impression that there's like snake people, and then he finds out it's really Stephen and the Gems that have been causing all the weird shit. And then at the end he sees like a dollar bill or something, and there's like a shape on it, and it like he builds up this whole new random thing, and he like this whole new concept for what he thinks is really going on that sounds like just gibberish bullshit. As they walk away from him, he's like, oh, and it's this and it's that, and it's just like, Ronaldo nonsense, right? Do you remember that part of the episode?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read you what he said with what we now know in mind.
Okay.
Drops the papers to the ground is the action. Wait a minute. How did I never see this before? Peers at a dollar bill. I know what this diamond means. Polymorphic sentient rocks. Oh, yeah. They're here to hollow out the earth. It's part of the Great Diamond Authority. They'll take any form. You can read about it on my blog.
That's amazing.
Now, the accuracy of that is fucking spooky.
Well, and obviously, I mean, nothing. It's written that way, Dan, for one. So don't be thinking it's too spooky. It's probably planned. But that
Oh,
that
no, I know.
that trick, that's so awesome, and I'm guessing they could only do that once. And ever since, fans have been, analysing whatever Ronaldo says to no end.
There's definitely a lot more analysis of Ronaldo's stuff. I won't tell you the results because obviously that would make you more or less vigilant of what he says in future. But I will say that following
That is brilliant, though. That is fantastic.
because what I love about it so much is it almost finally justifies the Ronaldo character because I love the idea that he could, through his craziness, actually stumble onto the truth through no actual logic. Just through sheer guesswork.
That's awesome.
It's amazing how accurate it is. So polymorphic sentient rocks, that's what they are. They're sentient rocks. They're here to hollow out the earth. They were originally. That is exactly what they were here to do. It's all part of the Great Diamond Authority. Also true. They'll take on any form. They can do that. They can shapeshift.
That's so good.
It's fantastic, right?
I mean, I still don't like Ronaldo, but that's amazing.
Yeah, and I thought that the best thing to do would be to wait to reveal that here once we knew about the Diamond Authority, because the Diamond Authority is this very specific and accurate phrase. Like, he's even got the name of it right.
So do you know at what point fans had noticed that was all coming true?
Probably sooner than I've revealed it here. I waited till to really nail it with the Diamond Authority thing, which I imagine is the moment most people went, "Oh my god!" Not only is he in the area, that is spot on, but I think probably around the time they started talking about the cluster as well, probably was because they're here to hollow out the earth, that sort of thing. Probably people were making the links then, I imagine. I mean, even polymorphic sentient rocks, they probably would have guessed almost immediately as being accurate, which would have put people.
There's probably, judging by the Ruby Sapphire thing, there's probably someone on Reddit who got it 2 seconds after the speech aired.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. Absolutely not. So yeah, I thought that was and I love this notion as well that in the end, these are the crazy ravings that you dismissed of a character that you don't like, but he was actually right. So maybe you should pay more attention to the crazy lunatics of the world because sometimes they're going to hit the nail on the head. Apparently,
not you, Alex Jones. Not you.
No one's trying to turn frogs gay. It's just, no one cares. They can be gay, they can be straight. It doesn't matter. It makes zero difference. I've
never lost any sleep to the sexuality of frogs.
No one's investing money in changing frogs' sexuality. That's just not. It's not worth the money. We're just gonna let them be mostly. I reckon.
You say that, but if someone said to you, "Pay a tenner, you can see a day in the life of a gay frog," I'd be like, done. Here you go.
Yeah, but I mean,
be fascinating.
Just get David Attenborough to film it.
I've just thought about the logistics of that, because it would just be watching a frog for the day, and at one point maybe the frog gets hot and heavy with another frog, and I've just realised I don't know the difference between a male frog and a female frog anyway, or
the female frog has wider hips and a blonde wig.
But I just wouldn't notice that, so actually I wouldn't pay money because I'd just be watching a frog. I'm not that interested.
And legitimately, I've seen frogs have sex. It's quite boring.
Where'd you watch a frog have sex, Dan?
I mean, watch is a strong word. When I was a kid, we had a pond nearby, so the garden used to be just full of frogs in general. And then one time I saw some frogs, and they appeared to be having sex, and I moved on with my life.
Trying to hide it, but Dan grew up in a house which was fancy enough for him to have a pond. Clearly,
we didn't have a pond nearby.
Pervert young Dan, just in his shorts and shirts.
There was a local pond relatively nearby where frogs would have their frog spawn, and they would all break
to
out
his butler while staring at.
So wait, I live in enough proximity to a pond to have had a few frogs in my back garden, and suddenly I've got a butler.
No, I think you had the pond in your garden. I think the pond was yours.
Correct.
And you're too embarrassed, and then you your parents, you're embarrassed about the fact that your family lost all the money because your dad invested in frog porn ventures.
Gotcha.
And it turns out nobody will pay to see a gay frog. So
Yeah, no, he's right. Yeah, he's exactly right. Alex Jones still thinks it's worth money, but he's wrong. Anyway, for anyone who's really confused about all this gay
that's
frog
why
thing,
you were able to say that with conviction. That's why you knew. That's why you shot Alex Jones down so much. You were like,
I was like, no one will pay for that, Jones.
This is what ruined
you can't
the Doolin
monetize
Empire.
it. No one's wasting money on it. No, for those
we had a pond, Alex Jones.
For those really confused, Alex Jones is like this crazy alt-right nutter on YouTube that makes money from his viewers by selling like supplements and shit, but he also spouts crazy conspiracy theories, and one of which was that the government were putting chemicals in the water to turn people gay, and then he ends it with going, they're turning the freaking frogs gay, which is just such a strange utterance. If you can find don't go on his channel and watch it because he doesn't deserve a penny of your monetization, but if you could find somebody who has reproduced the clip, that moment, on a separate YouTube channel, so you're not giving him any money, find it and watch it because it is quite funny.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know what's the shame about that tangent though, Dan? It was good and I enjoyed myself, but it's never gonna be Eddie from Pearl Jam singing "We Are the Crystal Gems," is it?
No, we're never gonna beat that tangent, dear Lord.
Ever since we did that, I've had that stuck in my head. We are the Crystal Gems.
Stop. Just stop. We did it once. You can't get another laugh out of the same gag.
It's stuck in. I'm not trying to get a laugh. I want people to know I'm genuinely got it on loop in my head.
Well, there you go.
We'll always find a way.
What did you think? Moving it back to the discussion episode very quickly. We should be wrapping up soon. We're getting.
I thought we were done. That's why we've been bollocksing about.
Alex Jones. There's a couple of things I want to ask you about. What did you think to the idea that they wouldn't?
Oh, well, you should have said. I wouldn't have wasted so much time with that shit.
What did you think to the idea that that they wouldn't have had the cluster in the first place if Rose hadn't started her rebellion? That Rose is almost responsible ultimately, because Peridot does have one accurate point, which is that potentially Rose has doomed the Earth almost.
I thought it was pretty interesting.
Oh dear Lord!
And I thought it added to this whole. I love this thing they're building of was Rose a good guy or a bad guy, and I think I hope they go further with that. I like that notion.
Yeah,
I thought that added to it.
Cool.
Yeah. But it was hard to pick that. Like, there's so many things are chucked at you in the last 5 minutes of this episode that I don't think I necessarily grabbed hold of each of them to think it through.
Hence why I was bringing it up here, Chris. I think that might be all of them. Though. We've talked about like Peridot's excitement for how the Earth could have been, and the cluster and the Rose stuff and the Diamond Authority stuff and the connection to Ronaldo. So I think we may have very much covered. I think we've pretty much covered most of it. Cool. So yeah, we'll leave it there then. I don't want to drag this out.
One of our classic mixed bag episodes.
Yeah. Everything up until we mention Alex Jones is gold, and then it's all downhill from there.
Some good and some of it shit.
What I'm really worried about is a few months ago we put up an episode and somebody was talking about our tangents, and it was like, you guys usually have such a good balance, and this one maybe wasn't quite the right balance, and okay. But I'm thinking, shit. The balance goes way the other way as these podcasts go on.
but I would argue to that point that the podcasts also get longer. So.
Therefore you're not losing out on Steven Universe discussion. You're just gaining random shit between it. It's like adverts, but not. Yeah. Artificially linked in the episode.
One of our reasons to A, do this, and B, lengthen increase the release dates was the ability to record them quickly, which has gone out the window. So we want a tangent about Alex Jones, then we will.
Yeah, I mean, we literally.
We're very much enjoying it and incredibly grateful.
I think that's the reason it got on longer. I think we really like doing this podcast, and I think that when we just
don't get me wrong,
when we're having fun,
I think you like it.
Go on.
I think you like it more, but.
Do you think that's true? I don't know.
I don't know. I think it's weird. Like how I saw ages ago now, but in context of this, we've only recently published a video where I discuss the fact that I'm about to propose to my girlfriend. And someone put, Chris's podcast persona is so cynical. It's nice to hear he has a romantic side. And I was just like, is it that cynical? And I was like, I suppose on Steven Universe it is. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that runs through, on MBS, except when I'm just, fed up of talking to Dan, which will happen from time to time. But on the other two, I don't think it's too,
All the time.
all the time. But yeah, I don't think it's too. I don't think it's overly cynical on the other ones. But if it is, then
It's funny how people can get a perception from these snippets of conversations, because I remember for a while on the Nerdist, everyone was getting the impression that Jonah Ray was like the really like quite sort of snippy, like easily agitated one, but he was doing like comedy mostly with it, and like it turns out that Matt Myra is actually the more cynical character. But everyone was like, "Oh, Jonah, stop bullying Matt," and it's like, no, it's absolutely the way around. But the impression you might get from just listening to certain episodes could swap your opinion around of how those people are. So I don't think everyone gets a full impression of yourself, Chris. And you're a big old softy, aren't you? In reality,
I am. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Moving on to the bit where we're ending. That's been everything for this episode. We'll of course see you tomorrow as we discuss we'll do the names, Chris, because that's the thing we do, isn't it? I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham,
the cynical one, and we'll speak to you. And we'll speak to you tomorrow as we discuss Message Received.
Yeah, well, if I'm the cynical one, you're the one who used to be rich.
Yeah, good one. You got me.
Yeah.
Got me there, didn't you? Whoa.
Yeah,
Got him. Yeah, very well done. That's put me in my place.
that doesn't need to be on the end.